Hello there, hep cats and kittens. Did I really just say that? Well, I may be a little bit scruffier than I normally am, but I can live with that because this is the first time in 6 months where I've actually been allowed to not shave. So I'm gonna roll with that right now, and if you don't like it, well, why wouldn't you like that? Why would you care? Why are you looking at my face so intently anyway? Well, anyway, last time I was here I mentioned that there was this new Star Trek type movie that I think everybody's seen by now, and I was planning to see it that night at the drive-in theater like all the other hep cats and kittens. Wow, I can't get that out of my head, can I? Well, I did in fact see it that night. It didn't get rained out. I had my very first drive-in movie experience, and it was pretty fun. There weren't a lot of people there, but I've always wanted to go to a drive-in movie. Always. And I don't know, they've gotten even better than back in the old days, because now instead of having those those little speaker boxes that you can attach to your window and then drive off and rip out, that's always a lot of fun. They now have it so that you tune to a radio station. There's a different radio station for each screen. There were 4 screens at this drive-in theater, each facing a sort of different direction. And so I actually got to hear it through my car stereo. It's like having my own little personal surround sound-ish experience. I'm not exactly sure how the audio is distributed. Probably not that great. But yeah, it was interesting. There was some technical problems, to be sure, which sort of hindered my ability to see the first 5 minutes of the film. The frame got kind of misaligned, so that the bottom of the previous frame was on the top of the screen, and the top of the next frame was at the bottom of the screen, and it was kind of weird. I kind of got the gist of what was going on, but probably wasn't the best part of the experience. Actually, it might have been the best part of the experience. Spoilers. That's true. I mean, anybody coming to this channel who's ever been to this channel before should realize that. But then again, I've never really done an impromptu vlog-type review before. I've never really done something of something that's brand new before, because I always like to, do a more in-depth, highly edited type thing where it requires me to actually have my hands on the movie itself to use clips from it. But also, I really haven't done anything Star Trek in the past 2 years, ever since SF Debris stuff got taken off of YouTube, or voluntarily removed from YouTube. Don't want to upset the company with the giant mountain logo. But I figure, I do it this way. I can just sort of ramble on as long as I want to. I can't do one of these things without saying the word ramble, can I? I don't have to worry about it, infringing on anybody's copyright. I can talk about this. I can say whatever I want, and no one will ever care. No one who does copyrights will ever care. I'd always intended to do a big review of Star Trek 2009. In fact, I'd even done notes for it. I think I started to write a script for it, maybe, and that was at the time that SF Debris stuff got pulled from YouTube, so I decided to hold off on that. So I've never really talked about what my thoughts on the new Trek reboot thing, where I made a little quip about it in my Star Trek Deep Space Nine Valiant review. Suffice it to say, I'm not a fan. Not a fan at all. Reflect on that for a little bit. Also wanted to, because I didn't quite finish that point before, yes, there will be spoilers in this review. If ye no looky for spoilers, go no further. But okay, I first saw Star Trek 09 when it came out in theaters in 09. And I seem to recall enjoying myself at the time as I was watching it, but then it dawned on me after a while that I was really enjoying it for the most superficial reasons. Like, I was getting really excited when they would when they would say their classic lines, spout out their catchphrases from the previous movies, and then I realized that that's pretty much all there was. It was just little bits of fan service that were just sort of mollifying me and getting me to ignore the fact that there really wasn't any kind of story. I'm a fan of Confused Matthew. I remember that he, in his review for the movie Star Trek Generations, he said that basically argued there wasn't any story in that movie, that it was simply a plot device. There was this temporal nexus, in case you haven't seen it, that, you know, the bad guy wants to get into the temporal nexus. He was in there before, he wants to get back into it again, and it, like, it mixes space and time and basically fulfills all of your fantasies, and you can do anything you want to go wherever you want to go. It's this little tiny thread of magic, basically. He wants to get back into the Nexus. He'll do anything to get back into the Nexus. He's been in the Nexus before. He'll kill people, destroy an entire planet to get into the Nexus, blow up suns. You know, Picard gets into the Nexus. Guinan's been in the Nexus. Kirk got pulled into the Nexus. And everything revolves around this Nexus that he argues exists solely to give Kirk and Picard screen time together so that they can make breakfast and then go back together and fight the bad guy together, and so Kirk can ultimately die. It wasn't a story in that movie, it was just the Nexus that we have to get into because that's the only way we could conceivably get Captain Kirk and Captain Picard together. That's what started, in my opinion, Star Trek 09 was the same thing. There wasn't a story in that movie, it was all just an excuse to justify why we have this sort of reboot that's not entirely a reboot. It's kind of a prequel, it's kind of a sequel, it's a time travel thing, and it doesn't wipe out continuity. It has old Spock in there and new Spock. It gives old Spock and new Spock screen time together, and it's all just an excuse so that we can pretty much do everything and not have to make a decision about where we're going. Is it a prequel? Yeah. Is it a reboot? Yeah. Is it a sequel? Yeah. It's all those things. It's everything, but at the same time that means that it's really nothing. Nothing happened in that movie other than, you know, just action. They blew stuff up. They made a new timeline. Okay. And so I really didn't follow any kind of pre-release stuff for this movie. I didn't see any trailers. I knew that Benedict Cumberbatch was hired, although I didn't know who he was, because I've never seen Sherlock. I got the impression he was going to be playing Khan, but I did not follow anything about this movie at all. I didn't have any interest in it. Then I realized I should probably go see it just for the purposes of doing something about it on this channel, because people were asking me about it. And based on what I just said about the 09 movie, you might think that I went into it stacked to hate it. But that's actually not true. I went into it very optimistically, although I think that was a problem too. See, I talked to Captain Logan about doing a video on this with him, but I kind of let him off. I've decided to let him off the hook for that because he's already talked about it for hours on his channel, and he and I talked about it for hours off camera. The night that I saw it, and I don't want to put words into his mouth, but I seem to recall him saying something to the effect that he enjoyed this one better than the last one because he went in with no expectations. I went into it optimistically. I think that was a problem. I thought it was the right attitude to go in there, to go in there not expecting to hate it, but expecting to like it. But I sort of had the idea in my mind that, okay, they wasted 2 hours last time doing nothing but setting up exposition and justifying why this franchise, this new rebooted franchise exists. Maybe this time it'll be about something. Now that all that's out of the way, it'll be about something. It'll be great. It'll be great. It'll be about something, and there'll be character development and an actual plot going on. And so I kept on, like, for the first hour of this movie, I was like, okay, so this is what it's going to be about. Okay, okay, I guess not that. Okay, maybe this is what it's going to be about. And it turns out I kept on doing that, and it turned out that the movie was still about nothing. And so it was like, we had the opening scene on the planet, where they, have the cavemen who are about to get killed by, a giant volcano, and I would say it was pretty cool that they had the Enterprise underwater. I've never seen them do that before. That's kind of interesting. I just didn't understand why. It was there. I mean, it looked cool, but I didn't see any reason for it. I mean, did going into orbit around the planet kind of go out of style? I remember they gave Spock some line about how, the shuttle could be hidden by the ion clouds or whatever, but the ship couldn't do that. Well, why would it need to be in the cloud? Why couldn't it just be in orbit like the ships always are for that very purpose? So, I mean, any kind of throwaway line like, oh, there's spatial turbulence. I mean, like the science in this movie ever makes any sense anyway. I mean, the reboot, even by Trek standards, is kind of low on making sense science-wise. But you know, even just some kind of throwaway that made, you know, the slightest bit of sense as to why they couldn't be in space, you know, justify why they're underwater. But you know, that's a nitpick. I don't even really care. Just thought I mentioned that was, you know, the beginning of the movie. And so I was thinking, okay, maybe this will be about the Prime Directive and, you know, about how it's morally and ethically right to let primitive people die. I've never, you know, the Prime Directive's kind of screwy in terms of, especially in later series. But, you know, that would have been about, you know, a good Trek idea to explore. Okay, so, you know, the Enterprise comes up from under the ocean, and all these people see it, and they're drawing their little paintings in the dirt, drawings in the dirt about it, the Enterprise, and worshiping it as a god. And say, okay, maybe this is going to be a kind of Who Watches the Watchers kind of story, where, you know, we have to go back and settle the ethical ramifications of deifying yourself. No, of course not. It's just a throwaway joke. It's not about that. Okay, well, moving on. Well, okay, Kirk gets in trouble, and he gets stripped of the captaincy of the Enterprise. Okay, that's cool. It can be, you know, a story about Kirk. One of the things that I hated the most about the '09 film was how little sense it made. Again, it was just their philosophy of trying to do everything so that nothing made sense. It's like, oh, we want this to be about a young Kirk who's not ready to be captain yet. He's still a cadet, and he's just getting started. Oh, we also want to make sure he's in the captain's chair, and that he's the captain, because people remember him being the captain. So let's just make him the captain, even though there's no legitimate reason for him to be so. Even though everybody else on this ship technically outranks him, he's going to be the captain. That drove me crazy. Good grief. So I was thinking, okay, maybe they realize that. Maybe they're going to backtrack a little bit, and we're actually going to have to see Kirk earn his place in that chair. And for a while, that seemed like that was going to be it. But then they just, I don't even know why they even bothered to demote him in the first place, because then the next 15 minutes or 20 minutes is all about him very quickly getting back to exactly where he was before. I was like, okay, now you're going back to the academy. Yay! Actually, now you're my first officer. Okay, not quite what I was hoping for, but that's still interesting. We can do a plot like that with, you know, Kirk as first officer and Pike as captain and Spock somewhere else, and that's mixing things up a bit, doing something kind of cool and new and interesting. And then, oh, no, never mind, Pike's dead. You're captain again. What was the point of that? Why did we even demote him in the first place when everything just completely, you know, we just slammed that reset button and now we're back to exactly where we were before? Did we really need any of that? Couldn't Pike have just died? There we go. And so then I was hoping that maybe this plot would be what the movie seems to think it's about, which is about, you know, the ethical ramifications of militarism. They brought in Section 31. I was so excited when I heard that, because I thought that maybe they were going to do something, you know, slightly controversial, something exciting, something off the rails a little bit. Because, I mean, for those of you who don't follow, didn't follow the various Trek series, Section 31 was something that was an organization that was created in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And it was pretty controversial when it came out, because it was this underground covert organization that you know, basically, you know, does the dirty deeds, that keeps the Federation's hands clean, and everybody said that it went against Gene Roddenberry's vision in terms of you know, what the Federation stands for. You know, they wouldn't resort to shady dealings. They don't have anything that's flawed about them. In fact, there was, you know, an early TNG episode that's supposed to be a conspiracy in the upper echelons of Starfleet, and they nixed that, saying, okay, no, there has to be little bugs living inside of them that are making them do this, because no Starfleet officer would ever be corrupted by this. We're incorruptible. We're humanity evolved. And so, you know, Gene was always, you know, especially in his later years, was really against this, you know, the Federation being shown as anything, you know, and Starfleet being shown as anything but perfect. And so Section 31 was sort of a big counter to that, saying, no, we strive to be better, but we aren't necessarily perfect. There's, you know, we do have skeletons in our closet. We do have reasons, reasons to do things that aren't exactly above board, and let's explore that idea and maybe, you know, have the characters themselves question, you know, how far can you go? How, you know, what's where's the moral event horizon, and how far do you go before you cross it? What are those ethical questions you have to ask yourself? You know, when do the needs of the many outweigh your own personal conscience, kind of thing? And that's one of the things I loved about Deep Space Nine. And so I was really excited when they mentioned Section 31 in this movie. Like, okay, so maybe we'll have to deal with these kind of ethical questions again. No, we don't. Not at all. Again, the movie seems to think it's about that, and I've read like interviews where people, you know, the people involved seem to brag about, oh, we have, you know, we put forth these really, but no, you're not asking. Suffice it to say, Section 31 is there just as an excuse so we can get a bad guy who's in Starfleet, who takes militarism into his own hands and builds a huge, giant, ridiculous, humongoid ship that the Enterprise can fight. It's given a little bit of lip service at the beginning with Scotty, like, oh, we cannot do that, sir. That's not ethically correct, and I'm turning in I'm resigning my commission now. You know, and when I saw that scene, I was thinking, okay, yeah, let's get some dialogue going here. But even then, up to that point, it had been kind of pat. You know, just so obvious that here lies evil, and we shouldn't be doing this. Even the characters aren't questioning it. Yeah, from moment one, Spock's like, Captain, we should not be doing this. This is wrong. Yeah, we should not be blowing up, blowing up people without, just because, people have a right to a fair trial, and this seems kind of iffy. And from moment one, it's just completely, oh, they're evil. They're gonna do evil things. And, it's not presented in any kind of shade of gray. It's just, this is our bad guy. Admiral Marcus is the bad guy in this movie, and from moment one, it's basically, oh, he's the evil Southern Texas general from Avatar. It's the same thing, same exact guy. He's just this, this stereotypical Texan guy who just wants to blow things up because that's how we do things down south. We can't handle having enemies, and just that really two-dimensional, just I'm gonna do evil stuff and you're gonna have to fight me now. There's no depth to this character at all. There's nothing interesting about him. It's just he's the bad guy and he's gonna shoot at us for a while. And Kirk's gonna be the I'm not gonna stand for this and I'm going to. It's so complete. There's no ethical question about this. It's just we're gonna do stuff. And if there had just been anything to have, I don't necessarily mean let's stand around for an hour and do some hand wringing and just talk about these things forever. I mean, you can have fun, you can have action, you can do things, but have something. There's a little bit of thought into it. It's not just let's blow stuff up for 2 hours, because that's all this movie basically is. That's the biggest spoiler there is that that's all this movie is about, is just blowing stuff up. There's fights, there's action, there's explosions, there's but I'm not against there being good action in a Star Trek movie, don't get me wrong. That's something that always annoys me about the standard reaction to people who don't like the Trek reboot is, oh, you just want a bunch of boring philosophical discussions, and this movie's having fun. You can't handle that. No, I love fun. I love having fun with Trek. Some of my favorite Trek episodes are the comedies that don't take themselves very seriously. I've said before, I love all the Ferengi episodes on the Deep Space Nine. That's just a bunch of goofy anti-capitalism antics. Where the Ferengi hide in the closet and they pop out and go boo and say silly things and do silly things. I love Star Trek 4, which is about as not uncerebral as you can get. It's just them traveling back in time and having fun trying to find whales. And I love the action in Star Trek 2. Star Trek the motion picture was boring. Star Trek 2 had a lot more action and was much more interesting, but it wasn't about the action. The action was there to help bolster the story they were trying to tell. I'm not a fan of action for its own sake. I have to have something that emotionally invests me in it. And that's a problem with this movie, is that there is just things happen, but there isn't any context to get me emotionally involved in it. The only in my opinion, they should have just gone for a flat-out reboot. None of this time travel crap. None of this trying to maintain that we're just branching off a new timeline. It was all just a ploy to get Leonard Nimoy in there, really. But and they couldn't even do that right, really. And Trek 09, the few times, they had 5 minutes of original timeline stuff they had to maintain basically, and they couldn't even get that right. So then why even bother? Just do a straight reboot, and you don't have to worry about that. You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. Anything at all. Be completely creative about it. But no, it just... They resigned themselves to sort of going halfway and doing nothing really interesting with it. But it's... I lost my train of thought. But they could have done so much with this. And the one justification I thought they had for doing this is being able to take existing elements and sort of turn them on their heads. Is like, oh, wow, this is how things went before. But now, things have turned out totally differently. And I thought that was the sort of germination of an interesting idea of being able to take things that people know and making them be different and figuring out stories you could do with that. Although I'm not really sure. So far, this new franchise has not given me any reason to think that's a compelling idea. But I personally haven't been able to think of any way that can do that beyond being a gimmick, as in beyond being, oh, well, this is the way it was before, but look how we do it now. And it does, without anything beyond that, anything deeper than that. I was really impressed in the first movie when they blew up Vulcan. I was like, okay, wow, okay, now we're really, grabbing this franchise, shaking it up a bit, doing something new with it. But again, after having seen this movie, it's starting to gel in my mind that even that wasn't really anything special. It was just a gimmick. It was just a way of going, see, we aren't just doing the same thing. But there's nothing there, really. Nothing there story-wise. It doesn't really resonate in any significant way. It's barely even touched upon in this movie in terms of Spock's character growth. It's just kind of there. It happens. And I realized that when I saw, probably the most infamous scene in this movie where they take the death scene from The Wrath of Khan and basically just rehash the entire thing. Only this time, it's reversed. Before, Spock goes into the engine room and he gets the radiation poisoning and fixes the ship, and Kirk is the one to watch him on the other side of the glass as he dies. But now, Kirk does it. And it's Spock who's on the other side. And oh my gosh, they're even quoting their exact same lines. But for just a moment, I was impressed. Especially when Kirk has that line where he says, "I'm scared." I'm thinking, okay, they're really doing something interesting with this. They're doing something new with this. They might actually be taking this huge risk. They might actually kill off Captain Kirk. And wow, how would the story go on from there? That would be so interesting to explore. And then as I was thinking that, it popped. I said out loud, "Oh, right, magic zombie tribble. Never mind." And yeah, it popped in my mind. Oh yeah, that's right. They put Khan's blood into that tribble, and the tribble's gonna come back to life, and that's how they're gonna bring Kirk back to life. And so there wasn't anything there. It was just, oh, Kirk died, and then 10 minutes later he's back to life again. And what does that have to do with this movie? It's like they're sort of trying to build the Kirk-Spock friendship, but it never really resonated with me in this film. It's like, they bicker some, and they have their talks and the needs of the many, but it just rings hollow. It doesn't feel natural. It just feels like, once again, they're just taking these elements from the previous movies and just sort of throwing them into this movie without their own story, without their own strengths of character to justify it. It's just, oh, well, it worked in that movie, let's put it in this movie. And that's not even, that's not even specific to this film. Every film since Wrath of Khan has wanted to be the next Wrath of Khan. And no film since the Wrath of Khan has succeeded in being the next Wrath of Khan. But boy did this film try. This film really wanted to be the next Wrath of Khan, right down to just farming out the dialogue, just taking scenes wholesale and just plopping it right into this movie. And again, it's the same philosophy. It's like, are you trying to remake this film? Are you trying to reboot this franchise? Are you trying to make this a prequel? Pick one. Do something. You can't just... Oh, boy. As for the characters, let me start off by saying, I don't know why Carol Marcus was in this film. Well, yes, I do. It's like what I just said. They're trying to kind of remake Wrath of Khan, and she was in Wrath of Khan, so let's put her in this movie. But she doesn't serve any purpose in this movie. She's the Admiral's daughter. That doesn't make any difference. You could really cut her out of this entire film, and you'd never realize you did. She doesn't stop him or even cause him to hesitate for more than 5 seconds. He just beams her off the ship, and then, okay, back to my evil plot. And then, of course, is that very infamous shot where she strips down into her underwear, which I guess that's her justification for being in the film. It's almost like Zoe Saldana refused to take off her clothes in this movie, and we had a bra and panty quota to fulfill, so we had to bring in somebody new to strip down. I don't know, and it was just... It was so gratuitous in this movie. I mean, compared to this, the scene in the 2009 Star Trek film was deep and full of meaning. I mean, at least there was some sense to it. In the scene in that film, everybody, Kirk and Uhura and the Orion girl were all in their underwear. Okay, fine. By comparison, that seems intellectual compared to the way the scene played out in this film. As for the rest of the characters, I'll have to give credit where it's due. I really enjoyed the actors in this reboot. That's the best thing this new franchise is going for it. They're all really good at nailing their characters down. I loved Karl Urban as Bones. He was my favorite in the 2009 film, and it just drove me crazy that he was completely ignored in all the advertising, all the posters. It's the triangle. You got Kirk, you got Spock, you got McCoy. But then you get to all the advertisement, it was Kirk, Spock, and Uhura. And don't get me wrong, it's nice that Uhura is actually doing something, because I'll be honest, Uhura never really had anything to do in the original series or the original movies, to write home about, really. I still think that putting her and Spock together is kind of contrived. I don't really care about their relationship in any way, shape, or form, especially not in this movie. But I'll get to that in a minute. I mean, I can kind of see where they were digging from the very earliest episodes of the series, and sort of, like if you squint really hard, you can see that maybe she was kind of attracted to him. But I mean, I don't really have a problem with it. It was just like, oh, okay, well, that kind of happened. In this film, though, it was okay. Actually, I'll start with the good. The only character I didn't really like in the first film was Kirk. He was the only one who, he was annoying. He was a jerk. He was an idiot. He was annoying. He was immature. And again, if they were actually going for the whole he's an inexperienced cadet angle, rather than he's getting his butt in the captain's chair an hour into the film, then that would have been fine. But those two things are entirely incompatible with one another. You can't have him both be the angsty teenager and the captain of the Starship Enterprise. They don't work. So I really didn't like the way they did Kirk in that. Okay, and I should clarify that any problems I have with the characters in these movies aren't about the actors. The actors were awesome across the board. They just weren't written very well. So, to start with the positive, I thought the Kirk character was actually much better in this movie than he was in the last one. And even though they did waste that big that chunk of the movie by having him be demoted and then not demoted, then kind of demoted, but then not really demoted, they still were attempting to mature Kirk. And if there is any kind of semblance of character development in this movie, it is on Kirk's shoulders. And Chris Pine does a good job of pulling it off. He still has a bit of a fratty kind of vibe to him, but I mean, it's not great, but it's better. Uhura, however, I enjoyed her in the first film. I wanted her to go away in this film. I mean, geez, she seemed to be even more of a teenager than Kirk, and that's saying something. The whole Spock-Uhura romance in this movie just seems so childish, so high schooly, so Degrassi, if you will. It just, you know, she was whining about this and he was whining about that, and it's like, just shut up. I didn't buy it. It didn't add anything to this movie. It was just angst, just more angst, whatever. Bones. Again, Carl Urban was still awesome playing Bones. He was written about 10 times worse, though. I mean, they already sort of magnified his sort of folksy charm from the originals up quite a bit more in this film. I mean, in the '09 film. They got to a point where it was just caricature in this movie, where they just have him spout out folksy wisdom and, you know, old sayings, you know, like, yeah, where I'm from, we push a wheelbarrow down the hill, and that just and got to the point where even had Kirk call him out on it, which I thought was kind of funny, but it's almost like you're calling out your own bad writing. Do you really want to call attention to that? It's, you know, to a certain extent, they're all kind of caricatures in these movies. And I'm not going to say, I mean, they're all fairly broadly drawn in the original series anyway. They were all kind of archetypal characters, don't get me wrong. But here they're just sort of caricatures of that, and that's, you know, that's just kind of silly. As for the rest of them, they really didn't have much to do. I thought that was kind of nice about the '09 film, was that they all did seem to have pretty significant roles. This film, not so much. I thought it was a really cool idea. Oh yeah, Chekhov's going to be in engineering now. Chekhov, it was always funny in the original movies, in the original series. Chekhov always did seem to be like the jack of all trades. They'd throw him into anything for no reason at all. Like, there was somebody that had to, you know, take over this or go to this new ship. He was always the one getting really interesting things to do of the minor characters. So I was like, okay, so look at Chekhov in a red shirt. It looks kind of cool in that outfit too. Let's give him, yeah, let's see what interesting things happen here. Nothing interesting happens there. It almost makes you wonder if Anton Yelchin wasn't available, and so it's sort of basically write him out of this movie, so they could film all of the scenes in one day in engineering. Like, okay, we're done now. You know, like, nothing interesting happens with Chekhov in engineering. He's just there, and that means he's not on the bridge anymore, and so you don't really see him that much. Same thing for Scotty. Okay, that's not true. Scotty had a lot of fun things to do in this movie. I will give you that. But I don't know what it is. These movies seem dead set on on having Scotty not do his job. In the first film, he was the only character to not be on the crew of the Enterprise until the very, very end. And now in this movie, he quits at the very, very beginning. Like, you know, I kind of want to see Scotty in his uniform, in the red shirt, doing his thing in the engine room, you know, doing his usual Scotty stuff at least once, but these movies seem to just not want him there at all. I don't have a problem with that, because you know, he did have some interesting things to do, especially with that rock-stupid guard on the big bad ship whose name escapes me. And speaking of which, the ship, it's not bad, but there's just, it feels like we've been here before. You know, it's not quite as stupid as the Narada. I mean, wow, that looks like that's a really awesome mining ship right there. That's as unsafe for the people outside of the ship as it is for the inside of the ship, for the crew people. Let's jump across a huge chasm to get to our next duty station. It's like that was like hell's mining ship right there. This one isn't quite as bad, but it still suffers from the whole, we have to be really big and extreme. And it would be one thing, you know, if this was, you know, a ship that seemed to be needed to be filled to the brim with hundreds and thousands of people, you know, to operate its extremely complex machinery and its, you know, super duper omega kill you beams. But the ship has like 14 people on it, and it seems to exist just to have empty corridors for Scotty to run around and, you know, have silly antics for. Where it's like, you know, ships. Again, it's kind of, I'll admit this is kind of nitpicky, but it's like, you know, look at the Defiant from Deep Space Nine. You know, that's supposed to be a, you know, Starfleet's first warship, and it's pretty small. It's small because it's basically it serves one function. It's just an engine with guns strapped onto it. You know, there aren't any amenities. You know, the crew has to sleep in bunk beds. Yeah, it's just, you know, space is a premium because it's not about being comfortable. It's not about having a lot of space. It's about, you know, getting as few people in there as possible, you know, to operate this giant cannon on an engine. And so we sort of go the opposite direction with this ship, which is it's freaking huge. But we got a handful of people to run it. So like, you know, what is all that extra space for? And so I was like, you know, you can have your big giant ship, but then don't call attention to the fact that it doesn't need to be big and giant by having it be completely empty as well. So yeah, Kirk and Khan defeat out. I noticed I barely even touched on Khan in this movie because he's there. He does Khan stuff, I guess. I'm not really sure why he's British in this movie. I mean, I give the whole time travel thing lots of leeway, but I mean, again, this is sort of the limitation of not just doing a flat-out reboot. Khan comes from the past, you know, the late 20th century, to be perfectly, you know, be specific about it. So he would not be affected by the whole change timeline thing. He'd still be the same person he was in the original timeline, and yet he's a completely different character now. And again, if this was just a straight reboot, you can do whatever you want with them, but for some reason you just wanted to hold on to continuity, kind of, sort of, whatever. It's something I could something you could overlook. It's not a huge deal. But, you know, I don't have much to say about it. Khan was there. He talked to Kirk. They fought some. For some reason he has magic healing blood. I don't really know why. Because we had to bring Kirk back to life immediately because we couldn't just let him die. So I'm not sure why that scene was there. I don't even really know if I have anything to say about it beyond. Okay, so it's, you know, they beat Admiral Marcus, then they beat Khan, then the ships blow up, and then Spock yells, "Khan!" Which is just, you know, almost self-parody. That whole scene basically was just self-parody. And then it ends with Spock getting into a fist fight. Okay, I'm so glad I said that, because Spock in these movies, it's interesting when you establish a character and then push them to the point where they act out of character. You know, so I can see the appeal. It's like Spock he's a rock, Spock rock. He's emotionless, he's cold, he's calculating, he spent his entire life learning to repress his emotions just like all the other Vulcans, and it's even worse for him because he's half human and he has to be strong all the time. But, you know, what if we get him to that point where we just push him over the edge and finally all his emotions come out and he goes crazy and he just can't hold it in anymore? Yeah, some of the best, you know, original series moments were based on that concept. But then you start doing it a bit too much and it kind of loses its impact. There have been 2 movies in this new rebooted franchise so far, and Spock has beaten the crap out of people 3 times over the course of 2 movies. Honestly, if you just take these movies and don't, you know, and take everything else you know about, yeah, any other, you know, the other kind of Spock and just throw it out the window, Spock, yeah. This is who Spock is. Spock is that guy who punches people. He does that more than he does anything else. And that's really how you want to define your Spock in this movie. The guy who beats people up with his fists. So they should probably scale back on that just a little bit. See, because yeah, so the whole thing ends with a fist fight between Khan and Spock. And so then Uhura has to step in and stop him from going completely crazy and killing him, because he's just that angry over this captain that he kind of has a certain amount of chemistry with, but not a whole bunch, really. So then they bring back the magic healing blood, and Kirk comes back to life, and everything's all clean and happy, and they don't, it's okay, we got our 5-year mission now. We don't really discuss the fact that there are, possibly traitorous people amongst the Federation and in Starfleet who are, taking the law into their own hands. It's never really addressed. That's fine, even though their giant ship crashed into a city and killed probably untold thousands of people. But, it's all good. It's all fine. And, to sort of tie into something other Star Trek reviewers that I follow have said. I remember S.F. Debris was talking about when he was doing his review of Star Trek Insurrection. He was saying that there's just an incompatible conflict basically between what it is that the writers wanted to do in that movie, which is they wanted this moral dilemma for the crew to get into about who deserves this magic ring energy that keeps you young, and who deserves this, and are they who has more of a claim to this technology, and is it right to move these settlers off this planet, or is it right for them to do this? Have a real moral dilemma, and have but at the same time it also wanted to be lighthearted and fun, and see them the crew come together as and those two things are kind of incompatible. So either you want to have this sort of lighthearted romp where you just have this two-dimensional villain who needs to be thwarted, and then you do that, and it's good at the end, or you have these ethical dilemmas that need to be solved. But you can't just, bring these ethical dilemmas in as the crux of your story, and then just have it be nothing but action after that. They're just incompatible. You can't have this serious ethical dilemma come up and then go, well, solve that problem, we're off to explore space now! So, as a whole, I guess that's my problem with this franchise in general. That and basically it's Muppet Babies. That's basically what the Trek reboot is. That tendency we had in the '80s to make cartoons that were young versions of established characters. Basically having the exact same premise, the exact same characters. They're just younger, and therefore have younger issues to deal with. So we had Muppet Babies, we had the Flintstone Kids, a pup named Scooby-Doo. It was vogue back then, and I've been saying this for years. This is exactly the same thing. It's Muppet Babies in space. Even have Captain Pike being the nanny character. I'm sure he's wearing striped socks underneath his Starfleet uniform. Of course, then again, Muppet Babies never killed off Nanny. That would have been an interesting episode. And that's basically what it is. We just want to get a whole bunch of 20-somethings together and have all that, teenage young person angst, but still, they have the exact same roles on the ship. But other than that, it's just these stories. I want them to do something, because another argument people bring against people who don't like these movies is that you just won't accept anything that's not the original. That's not true. I want them to do something new and interesting and exciting. That's why I was happy when they blew up Vulcan. That's why I was excited at first when it looked like they were going to kill off Kirk. Do something new. Do something I've never seen before. Do something interesting. Do something that's not just a rehash. It's not just an excuse for itself. It's not just your standard action space battle in space. Please, do something different. I want you to do something different, but just do something. And so that's my biggest gripe with these films, is that they just don't know what it is they're trying to do, so they don't really do anything interesting at all. They just blow stuff up for 2 hours, and that doesn't really interest me that much. That's not why I watch Star Trek. I usually watch Star Trek because it's not amazingly cerebral all the time, but there is something that makes you think. Even when there's amid all the action and explosions and stuff, there's still something, an idea that's making you think, that's driving the characters, that might be moving them in certain directions. It's more than just lip service, and that's what this movie's problem is. It's just this lip service to this kind of militaristic idea. It doesn't do anything with that idea. It just has the idea, then it sort of drops it. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Star Trek Into Darkness. So there's something extremely profound I forgot to say at this point, but well, whatever. I probably jabbered on for way too long, but hopefully you guys find this interesting. I'm sure I'll get a lot of hate mail about this one. This is what I get for striking while the iron is hot. But again, people have asked me what I thought about this movie, and this is what I think about this movie. It's exciting, I guess. It's kind of fun. Kind of. even that's nothing to write home about. I mean, if you like just 2 hours of explosions and people saying quippy catchphrases that have been taken from other usually better movies, two-dimensional villains, two-dimensional conflict, no real character development, but just some decently staged, decently shot, decent special effects, decent action, then it's there, it's good, and on that respect. Yeah, that's Star Trek Into Darkness. That's all I have to say about that. So yeah, keep watching. I have a brand new series coming out pretty soon. I think I might shoot my footage for that today. Matter of fact, it won't be out for a little while because this is going to be one of those more heavily edited kind of things that I haven't done in a little while. So yeah, look forward to that. It might have something to do with a certain 20th anniversary of a certain television show that I used to watch as a child. It's not Star Trek Deep Space Nine. But yeah, Star Trek Into Darkness. That's the title of this movie, and I'm done talking about it. Bye-bye!